Hello and welcome along to this edition of Hong Kong Direct, where we're just over a week away from a special day at Sha Tin, a day where two of the heavyweights of Asian racing, Hong Kong and Japan, will clash across three Group 1 contests worth a combined $63 million. And that day, of course, is FWD Champions Day.
The grand stage is set. The pursuit of glory goes through not one path, but three. Three Group 1 races in one day. The FWD QEII Cup. The FWD Champions Mile. The Chairman Sprint Prize. This year, who will come out victorious? Watch as Golden 60, the homegrown hero with 13 consecutive wins, leads our Hong Kong team into the clash of the champions. The FWD Champions Day, April 25th, Sha Tin.
Plenty of special guests to come on Hong Kong Direct this week. Chad Schofield, Joe Mariera and also Murray Johnson joining us on the show. But before we get to them, I'm delighted to say that someone who was the voice, the soundtrack of Hong Kong racing for so many memorable moments is joining us live via Skype. And that, of course, is David Raphael. David, terrific to see you here again.
Hi, Edward. Good to see you. Thanks for remembering me.
Oh, you're well remembered here, David. Now, of course, we've got you on because we want to go down memory lane with you and talk about some memorable QE2s, Chairman Sprint Prizes and also Champions Miles. The QE2 in 1997, your first QE2 won, of course, by London News for South Africa. As a young caller coming here from Australia, what was that like for you?
It was a big moment, and I didn't realise at the time what a big moment it was. There was a couple of effects for it. For me, I just arrived in Hong Kong. It was my first big race that I called to a global audience, and that was enough. You know, that was climbing the ladder to be able to get the opportunity to do that. But the South African racing sport, I don't think anybody comprehends what a moment it was, because it was their first competition at an international level against anybody in the world. I mean, they'd been restricted because of apartheid, and their first athlete, was out there internationally. He was a horse, and it was London News, and he was a pretty special horse as well. He came with a massive reputation, and he did everything that they said he would do. He was quite an extraordinary story besides just that one day that he ran at Sha Tin.
When you look at that QE2 honour roll, there's so many great names on that and some great globetrotters too, David, the likes of Jim and Tonic and Silvano. Tell us about calling their wins here.
They were just special horses, and they brought all the world form together, because in those days the money for the big international races was, there was no competition for that amount of prize money. Now around the world there's a lot of big races or big prize money races you could go for, and QE2 was building the trip, and the competition internationally was so widely respected. And horses like Jim and Tony, they just seemed to get on a plane and improve. Silvano was the same. He was an exceptional horse. For him to do what he did in Hong Kong, he made it very simple. The Japanese started turning up and winning the race as well. It was a great level playing field for the world to turn up at, because that's what Sha Tin's about. It's a very flat and a very fair track for everybody.
Well, that links perfectly, you mentioning the Japanese turning up, because this year they've got a formidable lineup for the QE2 and also down on Smash and the Sprint. But you called the first ever Japanese winner of the QE2, Asian Preston, who's also got that spot in history for being the only dual back-to-back winner of the race.
Yeah, he just lost the place. He's another one that just turned up in the flat track and the pace. And normally they go so much harder in Japan than they do in Hong Kong, especially in 10 furlong races. Sometimes they can tip up, but he seemed to excel.
And here comes Asian Preston again. He's doing it all over again. Asian Preston comes after Grandera. Agnes Digital goes with him. It's the Japanese 1-2. Asian Preston. Agnes Digital doesn't want to be beat. Asian Preston in front. Getting home late Indigenous. Asian Preston wins it. Indigenous flew late in a photo for second with Agnes Digital.
There's a race I've been really dying to ask you about, David, from your calling days here in Hong Kong. It's the Bullish Luck Silent Witness Champions Mile of 2005. Before we get to the aftermath, just set the scene. Did you go to the races that day thinking you were going to call Silent Witness just winning again?
We all thought that he wouldn't be beaten, but there was an inkling of doubt because he was stepping to 1,600 metres. Bullish Luck, we all believed he was a world-class miler, but we had this situation where one was going to be in front and Bullish Luck was probably going to be out the back and down the outside, and he's going to have to give away to round of Silent Witness. And that Silent Witness was a little suspect the last stride, which he wasn't. They were 1:33 and 3 or something like that. They were an extraordinary time. And it was a matter of whether he could give him a start or not. And then the ride and the inside trip and the gaps opened. And I still think it was one of the most memorable moments in Hong Kong racing history. And there's been so many good ones, and there'll be so many big ones to happen. But who would have thought Hong Kong's greatest horse was the day that he was beaten, was the one that stands out more than others in my mind for probably a different reason.
OK, well, let's take in the final 400 metres then, David, of your call of that Champions Mile.
400 leads from the Duke, who's dour. Cosmo Bulk off the bridle. Tiber switches out. Attraction needs room. Can't kick. Next, Bullish Luck coming to the inside. Silent Witness, he's cuddling at it. Bullish Luck coming through. Will sneak late. Ain't Here coming on from the Duke. Right there also trying to battle it out. Super Kid. He has to ask Silent Witness. He lifts. Here comes Bullish Luck. Comes to run him down. The crowd roar. The roof of the grandstand rattles. Bullish Luck draws up. Beats the champion. Bullish Luck beats Silent Witness.
What sort of memories then, David, comes flooding back when you see that vision and hear that call back?
I can't believe it, the 6 and 700. I was watching Silent Witness and I could just see Gerald Mosse sticking to the fence and sneaking ground and getting through. And then I still remember Super Kid coming off the fence and the gap was there. And instantly at the 400, it was, this horse is going to be right on the back of Silent Witness. He's going to run him down. And I just had this feeling at the 400 that he was close enough to be able to get him. And I still remember afterwards watching it going, he was sneaking through, and that's exactly what he was doing. He was sneaking his way through the field. And I'm sure if you asked Felix, he would have been thinking, I'll see this horse right down the outside fence getting home. But it was almost robbery to some extent because he didn't get a cheap trip, but he got a good trip through, and he was able to grab him for the last strides. It was an amazing race. I mean, I still get goosebumps just listening to the last few strides and watching it because the roar that day, I've never really heard a roar anywhere like it.
One final question for you, David, before we let you go and enjoy the rest of the sunshine at Sydney there. Before that Champions Mile, when we saw Silent Witness go to 17 in the Queen Silver Jubilee Cup, you said, I'll never see anything like this again in my life. But on Champions Day this year, we've got Golden 60 trying to make it 14 wins in a row. What have you made of him, watching him from afar?
Oh, he's quite an extraordinary horse. I don't want to be negative to the others, but at this point, he hasn't taken on some of the big international names like Silent Witness did in a couple of those key events over the seasons, but there's no doubt he's an extraordinary horse. He's got a high cruising speed, and the way that it's looking at the moment is definitely a bonus for him, having a little bit of a less competition to some extent. And there's no reason why, if he's sound and stays well, that he can't beat that record.
Well, David, it's been a real privilege to catch up with you here on Hong Kong Direct. Thanks so much for your time. And yes, it's always a pleasure to go down memory lane with you on those great moments from the past.
Anybody that was there on those days, we were just proud to play a small part in it. And it was just a very, very magical time for Hong Kong racing. It really was the time that Hong Kong stood up and put itself on the world map. And look what it's achieved in those times, built to what it is now internationally. It's quite extraordinary.
Great to catch up there with David Raphael. So we're going to be talking more about Champions Day on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. You're watching Hong Kong Direct. Welcome back to Hong Kong Direct. Great to talk about past memorable races from Champions Day in years gone by. But let's now focus on the here and now. On Tuesday morning at the Barrier Trials, we had 3 horses strutting their stuff as they complete their preparations for the big day on Sunday week. And they're the focus for Trial File on this occasion.
Batch number 1 of 10 this morning on the turf at Sharton. They're underway, and Bigwood was a little bit slow, not quite as slow as New Future, who got back in General's Delight. There was good speed from Guritis in the centre of the track. He leads with Capital Star. 300 metres left to go. Capital Star, Guritis, Bigwood in the centre, followed by Happy Land, General's Delight. Then came Power Kept, but it's Capital Star going well. Bigwood there to challenge. General's Delight laying down the challenge on the outside, late down towards the post, and it's close between Capital Star and General's Delight. I think that order, though, they were followed by Bigwood, and then came Power Cap, who did his best work late. Then came Ratton, followed in turn by Above. There followed by Happy Land, and then came Guritis, and New Future was always at the rear.
He tried okay. He only had a quiet one. He had a bit of an injury setback recently, but he's nice and free in his action, and he's moving well, and hopefully Richard can get him back to his best form.
Batch 7, 1600 metres, gates fly, they're underway, and Dong Jusui, after playing up in the gates before the off, missed the start. He gets back with Smiling Time. Exultant first away with Great Treasure and Lucky Turbo. Lying fourth is Entrusted, followed there by Charity Go. Then came Top Accolade down on the inside. Fast Flash Furious came next with Furore in the centre. Great Treasure's drifting back, followed by Dong Jusui. In the centre, Smiling Time, followed by Packing Waltham, and last of all is Enjoying. Turning for home at the 500 metres. Great Treasures out deeper. Top Accolade over on the inside. Packing Waltham moving into it. Followed there by Smiling Time. And then came Fast Flash Furious, who's well back with Enjoying, and Donk Jusui. It's Packing Waltham, who's ranged up in the outer part of the track. Now leads half a length on Exultant. Furore, Great Treasure. Then came Charity Go. Smiling Time down on the inside. Entrusted. Packing Waltham in front. Packing Waltham doing that bit better. He beats home Exultant. Furore third. And fourth, maybe Smiling Time in front of Entrusted and Great Treasure. Donk Jusui came next, followed there by Charity Go, Enjoying, and then came at the head of the rest behind them was Fast Flash Furious, Top Accolade, and one of the last was Lucky Turbo.
It was pretty good. He was left there in the gate for too long, so he didn't really jump very well, but during the trial, he traveled very comfortable across the line with plenty of force underneath. So I'm quite excited to see how he's going to perform when it comes to the big day.
You're riding him on the big day in the QE2?
Yes, and I'm booked to ride him, and he's no doubt one of the local horses to represent Hong Kong, and I guess he's not going to disgrace. He's going to go good.
Yes, nice trials there from both Furore and Exultant, who's not a noted morning galloper. He's not the best at the trials, but that was a good trial from him. And Ratton, nice to see him back. That was his first trial for quite some time. We haven't seen him at the races since December, but he's got a good record fresh, and he has performed well in the Chairman Sprint Prize in the past. However, those three are going to have to bring their A game. They're taking on some top-class horses from Japan. And for the lowdown on the 5 Japanese challengers for FWD Champions Day, earlier this week I caught up with Murray Johnson, a Japanese-based race caller, and I started off by asking him about Glory Vase.
I think this race kind of suits him, and of course he hasn't quite lived up to that since, and he's always had issues. He's always needed to have breaks in between starts, but this race might even play into his hands. And I think Karis Teton's got the right, if that's correct.
Yes.
So, he's had experience dealing with Japanese trainers on that brief period of time that he came to Japan. I think he's fairly well respected by many of the trainers here as well. So I think that's a plus for the horse, and he knows what it takes to win there. So maybe the vase doesn't have to worry about the vase this time, but whatever you call him, I think he's in with a shot.
Ran fourth in the Kinko show last time out. What's his sort of form been like since we saw him here in Hong Kong, Murray?
Well, he hasn't really, as I say, he hasn't really gone on. He's gone close. He's gone very close. And I think he's just knocking on the door, and he's that sort of horse. He is quirky, and he also has, leg issues. So those are not a problem right now. He's really going well through his work. And I think once he lands, which of course he hits the ground running, metaphorically and physically speaking, I think he might be a part of a Japanese trifecta.
Kaseki, we've seen him before. He had a vet issue that day, so we didn't get a line on how good he is. He hasn't won for a while, but he's run some good races in defeat, Murray.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Japan Cup to Ahmedai was probably his bravest run. He tried it again the following year, and that didn't come off either. But I really think 2000 suits him. Chad picks up the ride, of course, and that'll be an interesting ride for him because obviously I don't know what connections are going to say to Chad, but I believe the right way to ride him is to probably chase Time Warp. Time Warp will naturally go to the front. This horse can really stride and get rolling. If he's held up a little bit, he's a big striding horse, and you know the track is a little tighter than what he prefers. But I think if he's allowed to roll freely, he might be one of the horses that features in the trifecta. So I know there are 4 Japanese horses in it, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did run 1, 2, 3.
Daring Tack, you've called a lot of superstars in your time in Japan, Murray. She's the Phillies Triple Crown winner from last year. Is she a star in her own right?
Yeah, this, of course, being a first trip overseas might be a bit of a problem. And also the trainer is quite inexperienced in that as well. So there has to be some issues there. Of course, unfortunately, she copped a wet track last time and got beaten by a 250-1 shot, Gibeon. And there was some concern, I thought, for many people that maybe she wouldn't go to Hong Kong, but they were determined to take her. And I think the experience will be good for her. Now, as you know, the 2,000-meter barrier, the gate draw is essential. If you draw inside, you're in with a real strong chance. If you're drawn out wide, I think they'll make it pretty tough for her. So I think all the jockeys, the locals, and ones riding the Japanese horses, if she draws in the car park, it won't be an easy run. If she draws inside, she certainly can win it.
Just looking at her racing style at a couple of her recent replays, is she a midfield or further back horse and come with a run at them in the home stretch type, Murray?
Yeah, they did try to push her forward a little further in the previous run, but I think that might have something to do with the ground. Normally she does get back in her races, but she works through the race. It's not like she gets there and has to sprint over the last 200. She's normally with them at about the 5 or 6. So within striking distance. So I anticipate as she approaches the home corner just before at Sha Tin, she'll be right in the mix.
Loves Only You. She's proven overseas now with that narrow defeat in Dubai. She's an Oaks winner in her own right. What can you tell us about her?
Yeah, my concern for her is she's been in 50-degree heat for quite some time. The track worker has been with her all that time, and they've just been turning her over. Now, she's got to travel from Dubai. She gets, I think, about a week and a bit before she has to run. I don't think it's an ideal prep coming from 50-degree heat to, okay, it's warm in Hong Kong. But I don't think it's the ideal situation after having gone through what ended up being a pretty grueling run. I don't think Chronogenesis thinks any better or worse of the horse since that race, but things didn't quite pan out as well as they probably should have. I would suspect that out of the 4 Japanese horses, I think maybe she's the one that runs 4th. As you know, I've been wrong before, Ed, but I suggest the heat of Dubai could be a factor.
Okay, so you think it could be a Japanese trifecta, in fact. What would be the pecking order you would have them in, Murray?
Yeah, well, it depends on the draw. I'll state that straight up. But I'm going to go Glory Vase from Kiseki, Daring Tact, and then Loves Only You.
And in the sprint, we've got Down on Smash. He was able to draw barrier 14, come over here and win the Hong Kong sprint in December. What can you tell us about the strength of that win and the Takamatsu Nomiya Kinnan since then, Murray?
Well, that was huge because the horse had not a liking for the track before. I presume, and as we've often heard this expression, it's amazing how winning boosts their confidence. I think the Hong Kong win gave him that extra confidence, and he found an extra leg in the last 50 meters in the Takamatsu Nomiya. I can tell you he will win the sprint, and he is in better shape now than he was before he went to Hong Kong last time and before he went to the Takamatsu Nomiya Kinnan. The training staff are absolutely blown away of how, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get Joe Moreira to ride the horse a few times in the lead up to the race just to pull him back a bit because he's raring to run.
So Murray's particularly bullish about the hopes of Danon Smash and the Chairman's Sprint Prize, and also picking Glory Vay's pre-draw as his pick for the QEII Cup. Great to catch up with Murray there too, the voice of Japanese racing to those of us in the English-speaking world. We're almost out of time on this edition of Hong Kong Direct. Before we get to Champions Day though, we've got racing on Saturday at Sha Tin, a 10-race card. The trackside live coverage commences at 12:30. Wednesday night we're back at Happy Valley, and then Sunday the 25th of April. Put the date down in your diary. 3 Group 1 contests over 3 different distances worth a combined $63 million in prize money. And you can go to the website and to Twitter for all the build-up towards one of the biggest events in world racing. We're going to leave you, though, by continuing on with the Japanese theme. It's a race, the QE2, the Japanese have had great success in the past. And what a performance it was in 2012 by rulership. A dazzling display by him to win the QE2 Cup. So we'll leave you with this performance from him. We look forward to your company at Sha Tin on Saturday.
Fei full of running, strides to the front by a length to Treasure Beach, who parks up in second. Rulership third, Pure Champion fourth. Zidane 3 back the fence, then Collection 3 wide around Mr. Medici. Sweet Orange will need some luck back on the fence, then Irian from Viscount Nelson. Chin China second last is Thumbs Up, and California Memory is last as they work out of the back straight now. And it's Fei cruising in the lead from Treasure Beach in second. Tucked away third on the inside, Rulership, then Pure Champion. Collections had no luck, followed by Zidane, Mr. Medici. Irian's going forward now in a 3-wide position. Back on the inside, Sweet Orange from Viscount Nelson. Thumbs Up pulling to the outside from Chin China, and California Memory is last of the field, starts to pack up now. And Fei, the Derby winner, will turn for home with a narrow margin on Treasure Beach, has been called upon from Spencer. White's come off the fence, and Responsibly takes the run on the Japanese runner Rulership, and Rulership races to the lead and kicked away from Fei and Treasure Beach. Zidane runs on the fence, then Pure Champion, Irian, Thumbs Up, and California Memory, but away goes Rulership. He's destroying his rivals in the QE2 Cup. Zidane, Thumbs Up, and California Memory. Sweet Orange when it's all over, but Umberto Responsibly takes out the QE2 Cup on Rulership.